Welcome to Season 3 of Voices of the Goddess podcast, where we empower, inspire, and uplift women to be the goddesses they truly are. I'm your co-host, Julietta, the magical PT, owner and founder of Body and Soul PT, as well as Soul Candy, intuitive, handmade, and one-of-a-kind jewelry and artwork. I support people in finding the magic within themselves, creating balance in their body and soul.
And I'm your other co-host, Graciela, published, award-winning, and professionally certified portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding. I create portraits of who you are and not just what you look like so that you can become who you've always been. Join us each week as we sit down for a heart-to-heart chat, sharing stories and insights with listeners across the globe. Laughter and tears alike abound as we access ancient wisdom in modern times through unique and exciting storytelling, supporting you on your life's journey. Welcome to the circle and enjoy the show.
Hello, sunshines. Hello. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, sunshine?
I am doing great. Woke up and it was like 64 degrees or something here this morning, which doesn't happen often in Florida. So I was super excited, enjoying my hot coffee out in my cool backyard this morning. So I'm like, that just gives me lots of positive energy to get through the day.
Well, you must have woken up early because the other day I woke up early and I put on this really cute little turtleneck, and within 4 minutes I was like in a deep sweat. So Florida weather is such a unique and special thing.
I don't even think I own a turtleneck anymore. So
I love how it looks, mostly because it covers up the part of my neck that I don't favor. But, I can't be too mad at it because I have my mother's neck, and then I see pictures of my grandmother and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a lineal thing. But I do love that turtleneck look. I do. I just need to move to a colder climate so I can wear them more often.
Yes, I think of that often. So I want to ask your opinion about something because it's been coming up and it's coming up for me tomorrow. Those of us that work for ourselves, and we have lots of friends that work for themselves, and we get into this habit of bartering or trading services.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people out there in the money manifesting world who say, no, that's like a bad habit and it will diminish your money manifesting abilities. So just say no to bartering. And then there's me that go, but it's so easy and convenient. Like if someone has a service that I actually want, why not trade? It eliminates don't tell anybody, but it eliminates putting the money on the book.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, from a money manifestation point, I do say that I do get joy out of seeing my numbers at the end of the month. And so if I don't have a number to throw up there, I feel like it brings down my number, right? So it feels a little bit less than. But bartering has over the years given me access to services that I might not have been able to afford with actual cash dollars in that moment, I mean, let's face it, the concept of bartering has been around time immemorial, right? We're always trading something.
Bartering existed before money.
Absolutely. So it doesn't bother me, but also we're not in a full bartering system. So I can't barter for the electricity coming to my house, and I can't barter for the car that I drive, and I can't barter for my mortgage, right? So there has to be a limit to it. But I think, very carefully chosen choices, I think it's really interesting. I've had a lot of really interesting experience. I'm very, very particular about what I will and will not barter for. And it also kind of depends on what else is going on in my life, right? If I'm having the best month ever, I'm probably more amenable to it. But if I'm like, man, it's the rough month, then no, I need me some cold hard cash, right? Because like I said, there's things I can't barter for. I don't know.
Yeah, as a healer over here, the healer needs to get healed sometimes. And so I will, if I like someone's services, I will trade. But it's fine. I do have one person that we both love each other's services, and she will not barter. So literally we have this $100 bill that we symbolically pass back and forth.
I love that. I think there's a lot of value in that. I mean, I've gotten some really great energy and just paying someone for their time and the joy of me paying them and the joy of them receiving, right? Like, practicing generosity is a plus on that karmic scale, like giving someone the opportunity to do that, I think is a good thing.
So, if our viewers have any opinions on to barter versus not to barter, I always like hearing other people's viewpoints on things. So,
absolutely. Well, we do have our Circle of Goddesses group on Facebook. And actually, we want to make sure that our guests are also in that group. So if ever we're chatting about something and you guys want to continue the conversation, jump in there. I'd love to have that conversation. I'd love to continue. And I think it's really cool that you get to interact with our guests too. Who's our guest today, Julietta?
Let's bring Connie on. Hello, Connie. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, ladies. It's great to be here.
Hi there.
Welcome. Will you please take a minute and introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Sure. Technically I'm a civil engineer, but I've also written 4 books and on different topics.
Oh.
And the latest one is about decluttering, not just your stuff, like most organizing and decluttering books are about, but also decluttering your physical body clutter. And most important of all, the biggest of all, is mind clutter, emotional and mental clutter that may block these other efforts to declutter your life.
Love that. Love that.
This sounds like
to say, the name of it is Clear the Space, Feel the Rush.
Clear the space. Say it again.
Clear the space, feel the rush.
Feel the rush. Ooh, I like that. That hits me right in the dopamine.
Yes, exactly.
And for anyone interested in finding that book, links to find that will be in the show notes. So check that out there. And decluttering seems to be coming up a lot for a lot of people. I even, I have an accountability partner and who's working on some massive decluttering. And I have been doing some decluttering of my own. And there is something about it that just feels so good.
Right. It really is interesting. And Connie, maybe you can elaborate why does clearing up your space lead to a clearer mind? Like, how is that connection so strong?
Well, you mentioned the dopamine feeling that you get, and everybody knows what it's like to declutter a closet or a drawer or a glove compartment or a whole room. You feel a rush of energy, which I think is sometimes dopamine and sometimes endorphins, but it's all pain-killing chemicals. And I realized late in finishing this book that when you go for a long walk, you get those same endorphins. It's the same rush. And you're decluttering your body as you walk as well. So, and then if you're all upset about something and you have a good cry about it, you feel better. It's the same endorphins. And those things, anytime that you're feeling a little happier or a little better, you're improving your health, you're improving your immune system. We were talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza before, and he showed that in a small experiment that he did a few years ago, but he continues to study that. But there's lots of other scientific knowledge about how endorphins improve your health. And when your health is better, your brain works better. And I like to say my book is not about serenity and lotus blossoms. It's more about the rush of energy that you get and how you can use that for the fun things in life that you want to spend time on.
That's absolutely gorgeous. It reminds me of when I was about 29, I was going through a divorce and I started doing some marathon training. And just by the mere practice of walking miles upon miles upon miles and chatting it out with my friends, talk about decluttering. I'm pretty sure I left the Fort Lauderdale beach full of my baggage because it was such a purging, like physically, mentally. I was leaving, my tired body behind and stepping into an energetic body. And I was decluttering everything going on, upstairs here. And I never thought of it that way, but as decluttering, but you're absolutely right. Do you have a success story? Like, give me one of your client stories that you just love that really pushes you to keep going with what you're doing.
Well, I've worked with people of different ages. A lot of times I work with families and sometimes older people that are moving to a assisted living or a smaller space. But this one family I never forgot. They were, very, very happy family, mom, dad, two kids, a boy that was about 10 and a little girl that was younger. And I mainly helped them with their basement, like getting their basement more organized. And the when I came back, the mom told me, my son looked at the basement, he said, Mom, now we can play down here. And that just lit up my life.
That's beautiful.
Such a small thing, but he was so excited. And that's what makes me feel good. When something that I've helped them with just improves their life so dramatically.
I think about like families too. People have different styles, and living with some people who want to keep and hold on to everything, and some people want to get rid of everything. That has to be quite a challenge. So having that outside assistance too has to bring some harmony to the house.
It does. Yes, every single person is different that way with how much stuff they want around or they can deal with. And nobody knows exactly why any one person holds on to one thing or lets it go or whatever. So you're not going to be able to tell your spouse or your roommate or anybody, your kid, you're just not going to be able to sort that out for them. So you have to do some negotiations. Okay, we're going to keep the family room clear, or definitely the kitchen, but your own spaces, your own rooms, those are up to you.
I do find the older I get, though, the less and less stuff that I want.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's a normal part of aging or.
I find that the stuff I accumulate is meaningful, right? Like everything means something to me now, which actually makes it harder to get rid of, because I'm like, oh, but this is so special and I got it at such and such a place when I traveled to, I don't know, maybe I'm just bogged in my memories, but I don't know, that's my experience of it.
No, it's not unusual. It's very kind of a good story about that if we have time for it. One time sometimes I do work with another woman. I'm just one of her workers because it gives me a break from my engineering work in the computer. So we helped two ladies that were about the same age, and they were both moving into the exact same assisted living or independent living apartments in the same complex. One of them had lived, she'd been married to a professor at one of the local universities. So they had a comfortable living, but nothing, over the top. So when we moved her stuff out, she said, get rid of 90% of this stuff. It's mostly just junk. Like wow. It was easy for her to let go, but because it wasn't very expensive and a lot of it was worn out, not high quality. And then the other lady had grown up very wealthy. They even had a butler when she was growing up. And she traveled all over the world and she met all these artists and she gathered all this beautiful artwork, and she could not let go of it because it was so meaningful to her. So we did our best to downsize, and we couldn't talk her into too much downsizing. But when we moved them both into the same identical type apartments, the first lady she said, it's so beautiful. It was like a show home because all of her stuff fit easily into the apartment. It did not look cluttered. It just looked dazzling. And then the other woman, we put away as much as we could. But when we had to leave, there was no place else to put anything. She still had boxes and boxes and boxes stacked up. And I don't think she was very happy. So that's one of my favorite memories about letting go. And if you think about, I don't want to let go of this thing because my aunt gave it to me. And I had an item that I spoke to my aunt about recently, and I'd been keeping it for years. And she doesn't live nearby, so she doesn't visit. And I said, remember that thing you gave me years ago, but I've been holding on to all this time because I was afraid you'd be mad. I didn't say that part. He goes, huh?
She was probably like, I was going to throw that away. I just gave it to you.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Whatever you do, don't feel guilty about something that, especially someone who's passed away, getting rid of something because they certainly don't care, and they'd rather that you have the enjoyment of the free space and time.
I think I'll feel better if I know I'm like passing it on to someone, like purposefully, right? Like even donating something to Goodwill or, I don't know, foster families or something like that, where at least like I feel better knowing, okay, well, it's not just going in the garbage. Like the
Right.
waste, I don't like, handing things down. I'm all about that, but waste, I can't.
Yep, I'm completely with you there.
Well, we could probably talk about this all day, but
I can.
what we also want to know is, what is one piece of advice you've gotten from another woman that has changed your life?
Oddly enough, it was another organizing writer named Julie Morgenstern. She's written several organizing books, and one of them was Organizing from the Inside Out. And she talked about your own personality, just as you were mentioning, Graciela, everybody, and you too, Julietta, what things are meaningful to one person and not meaningful to another. But she said she had this quiz at the beginning, and she said, are you the kind of person that could sit down for 3 or 4 hours and just work steadily? Or do you get antsy after an hour of work and you have to get up and move around and do something else? And I thought, oh my goodness, you mean it's okay to be that way? Because that's exactly how I am. It made it incredibly hard for me to work at an engineering job, a regular job where I'd sit in front of the computer at one location all morning, take an hour break, and sit the rest of the time. So I've been on my own with my consulting since 2008, and it's been a lot easier because now I can set my own schedule. But it was so freeing to have somebody say, yeah, it's okay to be that way. It's actually normal for a lot of people. So that's what I love the best.
There's nothing better than being given permission to be who you already are. Right?
Yes, exactly.
And part of the reason this exists and we have so many different women on the show, I love the diversity of people that we've had on this show, but everybody's sharing their stories. Like someone out there is going to go, oh yeah, me too. I guess I'm okay. Like there's someone else like me out there. There's someone who's experienced the things that I've experienced. So but it's so funny how we need permission.
Right.
Where did we learn that?
Well, it's another thing I've just heard recently is until we're about 7 or 8 years old, we don't have a way of filtering out the information that comes to us. Like all these people, our parents and other people in our life that are trying to teach us how to be humans, and sometimes they're misguided with the advice that they give us. So we don't have a way to say, no, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. So we take all this, and by the time you're that age, you've already heard, no, don't do it that way, that's wrong, hundreds of thousands of times. So it's no wonder we're a little gun shy, and we get kind of cautious unless we set ourselves free. And again, that takes a while. It takes the same amount of repetitions as all the ones that you've received in the other direction. So it's very understandable.
I also think it's important to note that our brain develops differently over time, right? Like it's not fully mature until we're pretty darn grown. And by that time, you got to undo all the things that you learned the first time.
Right.
But because, I think like I see it in my own children when I say something and then they like take it and extrapolate it to some crazy end. And I'm like, that's not what I said, right? Like I said X, Y, Z. And they were like, oh, I thought you meant all of these other things. And I'm like, no, it is not. I have to, I don't know why I feel like confessing, but I feel like confessing to you that I own like years and years worth of National Geographic magazines that I have not yet read. And I swear one day before I die, I'm just going to lay there. I'm just going to read them all. I do have them organized and they bring me joy. So that can't be a bad thing, right?
That's great. Yes, absolutely. If you enjoy it, whatever collection that brings you joy, as Marie Kondo says, then that's the thing you hold on to and let go of some other things that don't enrich your life at all. I'll give you one tip that might inspire you. There's a local charity in Denver that it has a day room where homeless people can come in, just hang out for a while and, have a safe space. And they love to get National Geographic's donated to them because it's one of the few magazines that doesn't promote a lot of consumerism.
How beautiful.
Which would be painful for people that are homeless. So maybe some place locally for you is willing to take those donations too.
I've never even heard of such a facility. That's really very interesting. I mean, we do have a lot of support for homeless here, but like just a place to go hang out during the day. I don't know if I've ever heard that like that. Although probably as I'm speaking this, all my nonprofit friends are like, you're so crazy. Go check out XYZ because we're South Florida. So there's probably are a lot of that. But So I know your advice came from a book. Do you have a separate book that you'd like to share, or are we gonna mark that one down in the archives? Because I'm an archivist, so we're keeping them all.
Okay. Well, my very favorite book is by a man named Michael Neil, Neill, and he's written several books. The first one that I loved of his was called Super Coach, which had kind of a goofy name, but it's a great book. But he's written a more recent one called Creating the Impossible, a 90-day program to get your dreams out of your head and into the world. And it's so rewarding. It's so reassuring. Just the kind of thing what we were just talking about, where you realize that a lot of this input has come from who knows where, and we get lots of advice about trying to control our thoughts. And he says, "Hey, don't worry about it. You can't." So it's really it's a wonderful book and super reassuring, and lots of great ideas if you just want to try something that sounds impossible to you at the moment.
We're all about doing the impossible, doing things that we have no idea how to get them going, but you just figure it out and you get it going. But you might have some additional tips for me to help me manifest all these crazy thoughts that go through my head and Graciella's head.
I always tell you, Juliet, I'm telling you, somewhere there's a book with one line that'll change your life, like we're just looking for that one door, that one opening, just to tell you where to go. I love that. I like that it has a timeline in it, that it has 90 days. It sounds really interesting.
Yes. It's about a specific project, like I want to get a book written or want to get a product launched or something like that. It's not about, well, I'm going to change my mindset. It's not.
It's practical.
It's very tangible. So that's kind of different too.
Awesome. So Connie, in your life, I'm sure you've taken risks, done many things, but we'd like to know, what's one thing that you've done that you know you will never regret?
I grew up moving every 6 months to a year because of my father's work. And when I learned to read, I just went right into that world and I stayed there because it was much easier to deal with than my helter-skelter life of moving so often. But when I was 16 years old, I was a Girl Scout, and I was invited to go on a trip to Europe I lived in Wyoming, and there was a Fort Collins troop, Fort Collins, Colorado, that was very adventurous. And so we had a chance to get in on their trip. They didn't have quite enough people to fill up their chartered plane to Europe. So I worked all summer at a plant nursery to earn the money to go on this trip that was 3 weeks in August to 7 countries. And for me to do something like that was pretty brave. And when I came back from that experience, my self-confidence was on a vastly higher level, because even though the surroundings of our trip were pretty safe, we were just three bus loads of girls and our leaders camping at these organized campgrounds. So it was pretty safe, but still, it was a lot for us to leap out and do. And of course, I've never, ever forgot any of those memories from that time. And I made a friend, one of the bus drivers. I continued to stay friends with him until he recently passed away. So it's been a very long time.
And you were 16 at the time, you said?
Yes. So
what an amazing gift.
Yes, it changed my life to do something so out of my own comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm always, as growing up, we hosted exchange students, and then I went and lived in Venezuela for a year.
Wow.
That was a long time ago too, before, makes me sad that I don't think it will ever be okay for me to go visit Venezuela again. It was a lot of amazing, beautiful memories there. But looking at myself and my fellow exchange students and speaking with other people that have traveled the world, it changes something in you. And it gives you a confidence that people who don't travel don't have. And I'm always amazed when I meet someone that's never gone anywhere. I guess too,
it's often uncomfortable, and it's sometimes scary. Like that was the first time I'd been on a plane too. So the young woman that the treasurer of their troop got to sign the check for the plane, $77,000.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow, that would be fun. I guess.
Well, it certainly sounds safe. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, Julieta, you talk about going to live in Venezuela and I think you said you were like 19 or something at the time. How old are you?
18, yeah.
18.
18. I turned 19 while I was there, yeah.
I mean, like, as a mom, like, that gives me such a panic attack. Like, I get it, and I think it's such a cool experience. And Connie, even your trip sounds amazing. But I have to tell you, there's like, as a mom, I'm so nervous about my kids being out in the world. Like I'll go with you. I'll go with you. Like, let's go do it. Let's have fun. But I'll go with you.
Well, and now, like between cell phones and internet, like you would have constant contact with your kids. I'm sure when Connie went, when I went, there was no such thing as the internet. And like international phone calls were so expensive. In that year, I spoke with my family like once a month for like 5 minutes because A, didn't want the phone bill too big. And so it was just to check in like, hey, everything's okay. My mom wrote me a letter every single week. I did not write her back every single week, but I did write her quite a bit. I was too busy having fun. Yeah. But
yeah, I'd be in the hospital. I'd be like absolutely. I don't know if it's my Cuban upbringing, like, you know, when I was graduating high school, my mom was like, well, if you want to go away to college, I'd be happy to sell the house and follow you. Like, you know, this concept of like you turn 18 and you leave your house, like, is just not part of my culture. Like, being on your own is not even really like a thing, you know, like you're always supported. You always have someone, even though I do live on my own and I am a grown up and I was married when I was 21 and all that sort of a thing. But I think part of why I feel comfortable taking risks is because I know that someone has my back. Right. And I don't know. I think it's just really interesting. You know, I think it's really interesting to hear these experiences. Like, I'm jealous. I want to have those experiences, but also I don't think my heart could have taken it.
We'll have to work on you.
What?
Wow.
We'll have to work on you.
Yeah.
It's 100 times easier if you go with a good friend.
Well, I mean, you know, again, for myself, like, right, like you always feel like you're the smartest at whatever age you are, right? Like, even when I listen to my kids, they're only 13, but they think they're so grown, like they're ready to just go do anything, you know? And I'm like, but wait, you're still my little chickens. Like, come back under my wing, you know? Although these sound like incredible memories, and gosh, I would love to hear so much more about. I wrote it down: 7 countries. That's amazing. Did you continue to travel as you grew up?
Yeah, I talked about my moving so many times when I was a kid. Like, oh, it's so terrible. It was actually kind of cool because sometimes I get antsy if I have to stay in one place too long. And I actually was pretty good at traveling. My parents, we did lots of traveling and camping when I was a kid. So I actually really enjoy traveling. But I also enjoy being in Denver with my kids and grandkids. So I feel pretty lucky that way. And I try to enjoy every day, no matter what it brings. But traveling, I know you were going to ask me what my sweetest, most delicious memory was.
Yes.
From your list of questions. And that was actually a follow-up for that trip because about 10 years ago, I went back to see the friend that I had made so long ago. And his little granddaughter was there. She was 3 or 4 years old. And I stayed with his daughter and husband and granddaughter the last night before I came back. And she was a little wary of me, so she didn't really interact with me that much. But in the middle of the night, I was sleeping in their guest room, and all of a sudden I woke up and I looked at the doorway, and there was the little girl standing in the doorway. She didn't say a word. She just held her arms up and wanted a hug.
Oh, how sweet.
Like, oh, that's so sweet.
That is so sweet. Oh, that is very delicious.
So I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't continued to travel. I don't do as much of it now, but I think that with the internet and the beautiful pictures that you can see from all around the world at the drop of a hat, it's not quite as compelling as it might have been in the past. Like, you're not going to see this if you don't go there, but it's all good. Travel, don't travel, whatever you like. That was a point that was brought up to me with my sister and brother-in-law recently. They're retired, early retirement, and they could travel, but they also enjoy where they live. And he's a big sailor, and they do some really cool volunteer work teaching young kids to read. And so if you don't want to travel, they said, we feel kind of left behind when we see our friends going on these trips. And I'm like, well, do whatever you want. Don't feel guilty because somebody else's idea is, oh, you're retired, you're going to be traveling so much now. That's the whole point of Clear the Space. It's clear the space for you to spend the time the way you want to spend it. Like, not hampered down by a bunch of belongings. But if you want to go on adventures all the time, then you don't have to feel like, oh, I get all this stuff pulling me back to the house. Like, I should take care of that before I move, before I leave, or go on a trip. Or if you want to stay home and work on your crafts, then you have a nice cleared space for that. So
I think travel or no travel, we all have the same goal, which is freedom, right?
Exactly.
Carefree freedom to, and I think you can do both. There are times that I love traveling, and there are times that I just want to lock my doors and stay home. So I think they're both good.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. This has been really, really fascinating. I'm still keeping my National Geographics, but
absolutely.
I will definitely look around and see how I can lighten my load a little bit.
Well, I have one little thing that I say, this is a good exercise. If you had an hour to leave your house because it's going to get flooded or there's a fire coming or whatever, you don't have to leave this second, but leave in an hour. What would you take and what would you leave behind? That helps you identify. That really crystallizes what you value the very most of your belongings. So it's a nice exercise.
I see more decluttering in my future.
And I see keeping my National Geographics on wheels so I can get them out the door faster.
Great idea.
T-Mobile. Thank you so much, Connie. We so appreciate you.
Thank you too very much.
Thank you again for joining us. And if you're interested in her book, check out the show notes and pick yourself up a copy. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Next time. Thank you, dear ones, for joining us today. Make sure you check out the show notes for details on how to get in touch with either Julieta, Graciela, or today's special guest. Don't forget to subscribe, review, like, and share.
Big love and gratitude for all of you. May the path before you be ever illuminated by your fellow goddesses. Shine bright and have a magical day.